Alright, so the ACT is in 1 week. Today is Friday, July 10th, so you guys have exactly 7 days left, not including today, to keep on studying and prepping and cramming for the ACT exam. So in this video, I wanted to give you a 1 week study plan of what you need to do before the ACT exam, how much you need to do, when you need to do, how and why, all the dimensions of everything you could possibly do to maximize your score before you take the exam, hopefully considering it doesn't get canceled on July 18th. So there's a few things that I'd really recommend you do, and that's what I'm going to talk about them in this video. 4 specific things, well, 3 things plus a bonus tip about what you should do to prep. And then on top of that, I want to give you 4 tips that I've seen a lot of students kind of asking me about, and kind of my response to those things that students have. And it's basically 1 tip for each section. The main takeaway that I want you to take from all of our strategy videos, all the things that we talk about on this channel, I'll discuss that at the end of the video. So to get started, the 0th tip, because I have 3 of, like I said, there's 1 bonus tip, but I'll discuss the bonus tip first. The bonus tip is, like I said in the video last week, you have the ability to schedule a free tutoring session with us, with one of our tutors at 5 Academy. That might be me, that might be someone else. So by someone else, I mean Rohit. You might remember him from another video. But you can schedule a free tutoring session with us, and we can provide you, if you're like really like confused or desperate or struggling to improve, that's where we can really give you a more customized study plan and approach to help combat your weaknesses. But the general approach that I give in this video will kind of try to take into account how much prep you've done and how much work you've done and what you need based on your situation. So regardless, you can schedule that with a link below, and that's gonna help you to get more advice than just this video. Alright, so that's the 0th thing. But the first thing that I recommend you do is to practice. Within this next upcoming week, take a few practice exams. I know that it's cramming, so you don't want to like go too much and go overboard by maybe taking 1 per day. I know some students have been asking me about, oh, should I take 1 per day or maybe 1 every other day? 1 per day is a lot. You're gonna burn out and you're gonna get tired, so I wouldn't recommend doing that. Perhaps 1 every other day, something along the lines of 2 to 3 this upcoming week. Now I would say take 2 at least if you are someone that's already practiced a lot before. If you haven't done anything before, or maybe you just got started like last week on Wednesday or something, for example, then I would recommend you take about 3 at least, which I know is a big ask. That's about every other day. But if you take your first one today, then you take, 1 on Monday, then Wednesday, then whatever you do, I don't care. But I'm giving you an example, an idea of what to do. But the idea is you want to get the practice. And it's not just you're practicing to practice. You're practicing to find mistakes, find weaknesses, and find ways to improve. And that's kind of what our strategy videos will talk about. That's what our tutoring session talks about as well. But in essence, that's kind of what you need to do. You need to practice, and on top of that, grade your exams and learn from the mistakes. Specifically on English and math, try to learn from the problems you're getting wrong. And then on reading science, make it a point to experiment with different reading or skimming strategies. Again, we've talked about those strategies in these videos. That'll help you as well. So like I said, get some practice in, because that's going to help you develop the improvement. Now I will say that typically I recommend students to have a dozen exams under their belt before they take the ACT. Obviously if you have just 3, then I'm not going to say take 9 before the ACT exam, because that's way too much work and I wouldn't recommend that. But it's still something you should keep in mind. If you're almost at 12, or maybe you're above 12, then practice isn't the main priority. Maybe it's some of the other things that I'm going to talk about in this video. So that's the general thing. Oh, one thing I should also say is you don't have to take full exams at once. So if I say take 3 exams this week, that doesn't mean you have to take an entire exam on Monday, an entire exam on Wednesday, and an entire exam on Thursday. You can do all your English sections on one day. You can do all your math sections on another. That kind of thing. Now if you haven't practiced at all yet, I would recommend you sit down and take the whole thing in one day to get that endurance practice. But if you've already done that a lot, then maybe you can have like a science focused day or a reading focused day, whatever you want, etc. So that's the practice. I've just discussed the bonus tip, which is to schedule a free tutoring session, and that's linked below. And then the second thing is to get some practice in. Now the third thing that I want to talk about, or the second actual tip, is to look over your exams that you're about to take. One mistake that a lot of students make is they'll just practice and they kind of won't look at their exams at all. They'll just kind of practice to practice and then just repeat the process. I am the person that's most guilty of this back when I was studying, and that's kind of why I was a bit stuck when I wanted to get those last couple of points of improvement, or even at the beginning when I didn't really know what I was doing when I was studying. So I recommend please make it a point to look over your exams. For English math, this is very easy to learn from skills, given that you can maybe if you have some skill understanding, just look at the problems, try to understand, okay, why is the comma used here, for example? Why is this answer wrong on math? What did I do? What was the calculation error? Was my process wrong? Was my thought process wrong? Did I do something wrong in the process of finding the answer or eliminating answer options? Try to do that exercise and look at why each answer option is wrong, specifically on English. And for math, you just got to understand the process of calculating the right answer. If you really don't understand skills and stuff, Then we have some videos about ACT math and English skills that you can check out, but that's it's kind of hard to teach those one by one in videos like this, so we don't really have content like that. That's what our website is for. But I will say, so that's English math, like how you go about learning from your exams. For reading science, it's tough. You kind of just got to go over the passages you kind of struggled with, and you got to see when you experiment with different reading approaches or skimming approaches, you got to see which one worked best for you. Which one do you feel more comfortable with? And it's not just that, like, you know, when I say, for example, you know, the approach that we recommend for students is called passage glancing. You might be familiar with it. I've talked about it in many reading and science videos, and that strategy applies to reading and for science. If you tried that strategy, maybe you just did it once or twice, and you're like, this isn't really for me. That's not enough times to practice it to get the strategy down. Like I said, I recommend students to take 12-ish exams before you take the test, because this is specifically for passage glancing, for skimming. It's a strategy that takes a lot of practice. So at this point, it's kind of hard to really experiment because you're not going to be taking that many exams. But if you are someone that's going to do a reading heavy day or a science heavy day, then, you know, I will say that if you can take 3 or 4 reading exams in one day and just experiment with different strategies, maybe try our passage glancing strategy that we have talked about in other videos, then that would be a good idea. And I will link some videos down below if I remember, which I should. So yeah, that's what I'd say. One thing I should also mention for practicing, that was the first tip, you don't have to practice full exams. Like, if you know that you're just struggling on 2 sections, then maybe you want to focus on those as opposed to doing full tests. Just one thing I wanted to mention, that's something that I've done before too, but keep that in mind. You can do full tests or just focus on some sections as well. But either way, you want to have a large volume of practice, totaling amounting to like 2 or 3 practice tests, depending on your situation. All right, so like I said, the first tip that I talked about was the 0 tip, was schedule a tutoring session, and then the next thing was practice. The next thing was look at your mistakes in the practice exams you're going to take from now on, because like I said, that's how you learn, and those are your most up-to-date evidences of your weaknesses. The last tip that I wanted to talk about is specifically about looking over your past exams. Again, you might be someone that didn't really look over past exams in terms of mistakes and things that you did wrong. So I encourage you to do that, to, again, make the most of that evidence that you have of your weaknesses and mistakes. That's also going to help you. So those are the 3 things that I recommend you do, with plus the 1 tutoring session thing that you have available to you. And hopefully that'll get you some improvement. And it's just a matter of repeating the process. You got to practice again and again and again. You got to learn from your mistakes and experiment with different strategies again and again and again. And now, in terms of tips that I have for every section, I'm going to try to keep this brief. For the first one, English, people tend to struggle with commas. What I recommend you do, if you're really struggling with commas, is go over every single comma question that you've already seen in practice exams and just look over them. Understand why you got it right if you got it right. Understand why you got it wrong if you got it wrong. If you don't understand, then that's kind of tough. I mean, you could try to ask your friends, reach out. We can bring that up in our tutoring sessions. We can try to help you out there. But that's kind of what I'd recommend to do, is just look over your problems, because that's going to at least give you some indication of what you did wrong and how you can learn from those skills. That's English. Then for math, people tend to struggle with the last problems 50 and onwards. So how do you get better at that? First and foremost, you have to practice. Keep practicing. That's going to help you get used to those problem types, because even though they're kind of tough and they're kind of tricky and they're like gotcha problems, quote unquote, it's just a matter of, can you practice it enough, get used to the same skills that are, because it's the same skills in those last few problems that are tested in the first few. It's just the last few problems tend to just mash different skills together. So the problem will have maybe a combination of 2 or 3 different skills, whereas a problem at the beginning of the exam, maybe problem number 10 or something, will have just 1 skill. But it's the same skills. You just gotta kind of put a lot of things together for those last few, and that comes with practice. And one other thing I'll mention for the last few problems on math, make it a point to practice the 20-40 timing technique, where you break your time, the 60 minutes, into a 20-minute block and a 40-minute block. The 20-minute block, you answer 30 questions, the first 30, and then the last 40-minute block, you answer the last 30 questions. Try your best to do that. Again, if you can't do it, it's okay, but just try your best to get as close to that as possible. For reading timing, I recommend you passage glance and you annotate. That's very, very important. You have to annotate, look out for the relationships, emotions, events. If you want more information about that, again, I will link some videos below that'll explain that strategy a bit more in depth. And then for science, people tend to struggle with the timing. So what I recommend you do for science, you're going to get about 6 passages most likely, and some of them are going to be easier, some of them are going to be harder. You can just divide the 35 minutes by 6, you'll get about 5 minutes 50 seconds. You could go about it that way, but the easier passages, you're going to end up wasting some time because you might not need that much time, and for the harder ones, you're going to end up being a bit under. What you could do, another way to go about timing, is to do a 5-minute timing, 5 minutes per passage on the data representation ones, and then do 6 minutes and 15 seconds on the research summaries, which will probably on average be about 3 of them. Data representation is 2, like I said, that I should have said that before. So for the research summaries and for the conflicting viewpoints, you do 6 minutes and 15 seconds. And so if you add up the 3 research summaries, the 1 conflicting viewpoints, and the 2 data representation, then you end up at 35 minutes. Again, that's just a ballpark estimate. You don't have to be on the clock, 6 minutes, 15 seconds, but that's one way to go about it. Approximately, you're spending just over 6 minutes on some, and you're spending just about 5 minutes on the easier ones. And again, 2 data representation, 3 conflicting, 3 research summaries, and 1 conflicting viewpoints. That's on average what you'll get. And for the data representation, you're doing 5 minutes, and for the others, you're doing 6 minutes and 15 seconds approximately. That's about it for me. If you guys need any other resources like practice tests to use, as you're going through your cramming or whatever, we have some linked below. You'll also find, like I said, the free tutoring that's going to be helpful to you if you are kind of struggling or you feel kind of stuck. We'll help you out there. Apart from that, that's basically it for me. I don't really have anything else to add. I wish you the best of luck on your exams. One thing I will mention as well is that we're most likely going to have a live stream cramming session on Friday night. So if you're cramming and it's Friday night, which is probably going to be most of you, considering hopefully a lot of your tests don't get canceled, then feel free to join in on that as well. That's it for me. See you.